London remembers 7/7 bombings 20 years on as William lays flowers for victims. The names of the 52 people killed in London's 7/7 bombings were read out at a memorial service at St Paul's Cathedral on the 20th anniversary of the attacks. Saba Edwards, the daughter of Behnaz Modzaka, who died when one of the bombs detonated on the London Underground, began to cry as she read out her mother's name among the list of victims. Thelma Stober, who was injured in the attack, joined her at the lectern as thousands of white petals were dropped from the cathedral's ceiling. Families and survivors were joined by members of the royal family and the Prime Minister to mark the anniversary. Dean Andrew Tremlett said the service marked the solemn anniversary of an act of terror inflicted on our city. We give thanks for the spirit of this city, its openness, its endurance, and its steadfast refusal to let the hatred prevail. A series of commemorative events were held across the capital on Monday to remember the victims of the bombings carried out by Islamist extremists. The suicide attacks in central London saw bombs detonated on 3 underground trains and a bus on 7th of July 2005, causing terrible casualties during the capital's rush hour. More than 50,000 white petals fell from the cathedral's domed ceiling as the names of those killed in the attacks were read out. Saba Edwards' mother, Behnaz, was heading to Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital when she boarded a Piccadilly Line tube train. Speaking about her grief at the inquest 5 years after her mother's death, she said her family was forced to sell their home because the reality of living there without her was too painful to cope with. Miss Stober was on the Underground at Aldgate Station when one of the bombs was detonated. The blast threw her onto the tracks, leaving her partly underneath the train with a piece of the door impaled in her right thigh and her left foot twisted. When she saw rescuers in yellow and orange jackets approaching, she shouted, "Help me! Help me! I'm alive! I don't want to die!" "If I could have amnesia permanently to eliminate everything about the incidents, I would," she told the BBC. The National Service of Commemoration saw emergency services staff carry 4 candles through the cathedral, representing the locations devastated by the bombings: Russell Square, Aldgate, Edgware Road, and Tavistock Square. Families and first responders then gave readings about each location, including George Saradakis, who was driving the number 30 bus that was blown apart in Tavistock Square, killing 13 people. Graham Fawkes, whose son David Fawkes was killed on the tube at Edgware Road, also addressed the congregation. He said, "The good which is in Londoners and the countless visitors whom they host at any given moment is not erased by hatred or threat, but rather is fostered to produce a harvest of hope for each generation." The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh attended the service on behalf of King Charles III, who had called on people to stand united against those who would seek to divide us, in a message marking the anniversary of the senseless act of evil. The Prince of Wales attended a memorial service on Monday afternoon in Hyde Park, where he laid flowers and spoke to several people there, including Miss Stober. Kemi Lasisi Ajao, who was working at the Royal London Hospital at the time of the attacks, said she had spoken to Prince William at the service. Speaking to PA News Agency, she said she told him she had met his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, when the late monarch visited the hospital after the bombings. Prince William attended a memorial service alongside 7/7 bombing survivor Miss Stober in Hyde Park on Monday afternoon. "We grieve and we remember," read the tribute laid by the Prime Minister at the 7th July Memorial Gardens alongside the Mayor of London on Monday morning. Events were also held at the sites of the bombings. At Russell Square, where half of all those killed that day lost their lives, floral tributes were laid, while a minute's silence was held at Edgware Road Station to mark the first attack at 08:49 BST. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, also laid wreaths at Hyde Park's 7/7 Memorial to mark the time the first bomb exploded. Victims' families and emergency service staff later held a minute's silence at Tavistock Square, where the fourth and final bomb exploded at 09:48. Sir Keir said the country would unite to remember the lives lost in the suicide attacks and all those whose lives were changed forever. He added, "Those who tried to divide us failed. We stood together then, and we stand together now, against hate and for the values that define us of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law." King Charles said the attacks had shown the importance of building a society where people of all faiths and backgrounds can live together with mutual respect.